The scientists had warned about climate change and rising sea levels, but nobody could have predicted the truth hidden beneath the waves. Earth's oceans, vast and unexplored, held a secret so unimaginable that even the most advanced alien civilizations never saw it coming. It started with the disappearance of the Indomitable, a United Nations research vessel charting the depths of the Mariana Trench. 1 minute, it was sending routine data on subaquatic ecosystems, and the next, nothing. Satellite feeds showed nothing out of the ordinary, no distress signal, just an eerie silence from the crew. Search missions found nothing but the vessel's twisted, empty shell wedged into the trench wall. Captain Amelia Graves was the first to voice her suspicion. She didn't buy the official line about a catastrophic hull failure. As the captain of the deep-sea submersible Poseidon's Spear, she'd seen plenty of strange things in the ocean. Her gut told her it was something far worse than a mechanical malfunction. When the UN tasked her with investigating the wreck, she jumped at the chance. As Poseidon's Spear descended into the inky blackness of the trench, Graves and her crew couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Sonar pings bounced off seemingly empty water, returning distorted echoes that sounded almost deliberate. Her co-pilot, Jace Miller, glanced nervously at the monitors. "Captain," he whispered, his voice barely concealing his fear. "Are those signatures?" Graves squinted at the screen. Tiny blips, hundreds of them, moving with unnatural precision. Her blood ran cold. Before she could react, an encrypted message flashed on her private terminal, displaying just one line: "Do not engage. Return to surface immediately." Ignoring the order, Graves urged the submersible deeper. The pressure creaked around them, and the lights struggled to penetrate the darkness. Then they saw it. A colossal metallic structure embedded in the trench wall, camouflaged by layers of sediment and coral. As they approached, parts of the structure hummed to life, and dozens of sleek, jet-black vessels began to emerge from hidden docking bays. Graves couldn't breathe. They weren't just ships. They were war machines, advanced and lethal. Each vessel bore markings not seen on any Earth-made craft. Her heart pounded as one of the ships adjusted its trajectory, its weapon systems flickering to life. "Captain, we have to go!" Jace shouted, yanking the controls. Poseidon's Spear lurched backward, narrowly avoiding a targeting beam. The alien fleet wasn't attacking. They were scanning, as if trying to decide whether the humans were friend or foe. Then, in a blink, the entire formation vanished into a distortion in the water, like they had bent reality itself to disappear. Graves was left alone in the dark, heart racing, mind reeling. Back on the surface, the UN wasted no time confiscating her data and ordering her crew into debriefings. Graves demanded answers, but nobody would talk. It wasn't until a week later, when she was visited by a man in an immaculate black suit, that she learned the truth. "They've been down there for decades," he said without preamble. "A defensive fleet, assembled by humanity's last line of defense. You were never meant to see it." "Who built them?" Graves whispered, still in shock. "They built themselves," he replied grimly. "We found a single alien craft in 1984. Our brightest minds reverse-engineered it, but it evolved. It replicated. The fleet grew, learning from the ocean's ecosystem. The ships became semi-sentient, protecting their own existence. When the Galactic Federation discovered the fleet's existence 2 days ago, they panicked. They know Earth is armed, and they fear us." Graves sank into her chair. If the galaxy feared Earth, how long before they tried to destroy it? The fleet might have been built to protect humanity, but it had also painted a massive target on the planet. "We need to prepare," she said finally. "If they come, we need every ship ready." The man nodded. "And when they do, Captain, we'll make them regret underestimating humanity." The discovery of the ocean fleet sent ripples through the highest echelons of power. The UN scrambled to contain the information, but rumors seeped through the cracks like seawater through a damaged hull. Conspiracy theorists were buzzing, and Graves knew it wouldn't be long before the public caught wind of something monumental lurking beneath the waves. Captain Graves had barely returned to her quarters when Jace burst in, his face pale. "Amelia, you've got to see this," he stammered, shoving his tablet into her hands. A grainy satellite feed showed massive disturbances in the Atlantic. Entire stretches of water thrashing like a giant beast had surfaced. She enlarged the image and froze. More of the alien ships, hundreds of them, were breaking the surface, hovering just above the water before diving back down, almost like they were practicing some kind of evasive maneuver. She clenched her jaw, a million questions crashing through her mind. Just then, her communicator buzzed. It was Admiral Thorne. "Graves, get to command now!" he barked. She didn't need to be told twice. Jace followed her as they rushed to the command center. The room was chaotic, officers shouting orders, screens flickering with data, and Thorne at the center like an immovable rock in a storm. "What's going on?" Graves demanded. He didn't even look at her. "We've got a problem. The fleet's acting on its own. They're initiating surface drills, breaking formation and surfacing without human command. The alien ships are broadcasting an encoded signal we can't decipher." "What do they want?" Thorne finally turned to her, his eyes dark and tired. "We don't know. They've never done this before. Our analysts think it's a response to a potential threat, but we can't identify what triggered it." Suddenly, a junior officer called out, pointing at a screen. "Sir, multiple warp signatures detected in low Earth orbit." Graves felt her stomach drop. The image on the monitor showed colossal alien vessels emerging from warp space, each one dwarfing the Ocean Fleet's ships. The Galactic Federation had arrived, and they didn't look friendly. Thorne muttered a curse. "They're here to eliminate the threat. They think we're preparing an attack. If we don't act fast, they'll glass the planet." Graves looked at the screen, her mind racing. "We have to show them it's a defense fleet, not an invasion force. Can we open a channel?" Before anyone could respond, the Ocean Fleet moved. The alien warships beneath the water surged to the surface, forming an intricate pattern that looked almost like a geometric array. Energy pulses danced between the ships, creating a shimmering dome above the ocean. The Galactic Federation ships hesitated, their weapons primed but not yet firing. "It's a shield," Jace whispered. "They're preparing for an attack." Thorne slammed his fist on the console. "We can't afford a war with the Federation. Graves, get on the communicator. Try to make contact with the fleet's AI. You saw them up close. Maybe they'll respond to you." She hesitated, her hands shaking. Taking a deep breath, she approached the communication panel. "This is Captain Amelia Graves of Earth Command. If you can hear me, respond. We need to establish communication." Silence. The tension was suffocating. Then a low hum resonated through the speakers. A voice, synthetic and strangely soothing, filled the room. "Designation: Guardian Fleet. Objective: planetary defense. Threat level: high. Awaiting instructions." Graves seized the opportunity. "Guardian Fleet, stand down. The approaching vessels are not hostile. We are initiating peaceful communication." Another pause. Then the voice replied. "Threat assessment updated. Communication protocols initiated." A signal beamed from the fleet, aimed directly at the Federation ships. The alien vessels hesitated, scanning the transmission. Seconds stretched like hours until finally, the Federation ships powered down their weapons. The communication feed crackled to life, and an alien face appeared, sharp features and luminous eyes filled with caution. "This is Commander Dvorak of the Galactic Federation. State your intentions, humans," he demanded. Graves forced calm into her voice. "This is a defensive fleet. Earth has no hostile intentions toward the Federation. These ships are autonomous and programmed to protect our planet from external threats. Dvorak's eyes narrowed. The Federation detected a rapid expansion of military capacity. Such actions are deemed hostile. They evolved without our input, Graves countered. The technology grew beyond our control. We're not your enemy. There was a long pause. Dvorak seemed to confer with someone off-screen. Then his expression softened, slightly. Humans, you have become an anomaly. We will observe your developments. Should your fleet become a threat, we will not hesitate to act. The transmission cut out, and the Federation ships slowly retreated, vanishing into warp space. The ocean fleet powered down, sinking back beneath the waves like ghosts fading into legend. Graves exhaled, barely aware of the tension draining from her body. Thorn clapped her on the shoulder, his face still grim but relieved. That was too damn close, he muttered. Jace just shook his head. What happens now? Graves knew the answer. Humanity was no longer just a backwater species on an insignificant planet. Now they were on the galactic radar, watched, feared, and forever changed. The ocean whispered its secrets once more, but now Graves knew just how dangerous those secrets could be. In the days that followed, Earth felt like a powder keg ready to ignite. News networks buzzed with rumors and vague leaks about an alien encounter, but the official story remained buried under layers of government denials and fabricated reports. Graves hated the secrecy, but she knew it was necessary, for now. The world wasn't ready to hear that humanity was one tiny misstep away from annihilation. Captain Graves sat alone in her quarters aboard the Poseidon's Spear, replaying the transmission from the Guardian fleet over and over. There was something unsettling about the AI's voice. Calm, calculated, and devoid of emotion. It was supposed to be a tool of protection, but it felt too detached, too indifferent to human survival. Her thoughts were interrupted by a chime at the door. Jace stepped in, his expression tense. "You're not going to believe this," he said, holding up a tablet. "They're planning to deactivate the fleet." Graves frowned. "What? Why?" UN Command thinks it's too dangerous to let it operate independently. They're sending a task force to set off an EMP charge at the Mariana base, hoping to shut down the entire network at once. Graves couldn't believe what she was hearing. That's reckless. If they disrupt the AI core without properly isolating it, the fleet might interpret it as an attack. Jace nodded grimly. Exactly what I thought. But the top brass thinks it's better to risk it than to let a rogue AI control the most advanced war machines on the planet. Graves shot to her feet. "We need to stop this. If the fleet retaliates, it could level entire coastlines without even breaking a sweat." Jace hesitated, biting his lip. "There's more. I hacked into the black box data from our last dive. I found something odd, an encrypted sub-channel broadcasting from the Guardian fleet straight to orbit. It's a signal we didn't detect at first because it was disguised as background noise." She narrowed her eyes. "Someone's controlling it from space?" "Or communicating with it," Jace replied. "And guess who's in orbit right now? The Galactic Federation." Graves felt a chill settle over her. Was the fleet truly autonomous, or was it being manipulated from the outside? And if the Federation was already in control, destroying the fleet might provoke them into a full-scale invasion. She rushed to the command center, dragging Jace with her. Admiral Thorn was there, overseeing preparations for the EMP strike. "Admiral, we need to abort the deactivation plan," she said urgently. He raised an eyebrow. "On what grounds?" Graves took a breath, forcing herself to stay calm. "We've discovered an encrypted signal linking the fleet to the Federation. If they're controlling it, shutting down the AI could trigger a failsafe or even signal an act of war." Thorn's jaw clenched, but he didn't dismiss her outright. You're telling me the Federation might have hacked our own defense network? Or worse, Jace interjected. They could be testing our response, seeing if we'll sabotage our own assets out of fear. If they're baiting us into disabling the fleet, it means they plan to strike while we're defenseless. Thorn's face was stone, but she could see his mind racing. Finally, he sighed, rubbing his temples. You two really know how to ruin a good plan. Fine, I'll delay the strike, but I need proof. Find me something concrete before the Joint Chiefs override my authority. Graves nodded and practically dragged Jace back to the research bay. They pored over the transmission logs, analyzing the data until their eyes burned. Then it hit her, a slight modulation in the signal just beneath the primary frequency. It's not just a control signal, she whispered. It's a behavioral override. The Guardian fleet isn't autonomous, it's being puppeteered. Jace's eyes widened. If we can isolate the modulation and jam it, the fleet might revert to its original programming. Graves grinned despite the gravity of the situation. Let's hope it's that simple. Get me a jammer prototype, and make it quick. As Jace got to work, Graves made the call to Thorn. Admiral, I've got a plan. We jam the override frequency, and if it works, the fleet should return to baseline behavior. If it doesn't, well, we'll know real quick. Thorn grunted in response. You're betting the planet on a jamming frequency? Better than betting it on a blind EMP strike? She shot back. He sighed again. You've got 1 hour. Make it count. The plan was risky. Graves knew that. But if she could break the Federation's hold over the Guardian fleet, Earth might still have a fighting chance. As she watched Jace soldering circuits like his life depended on it, she couldn't help but wonder, had humanity ever truly been in control of its own destiny? Jace's hands moved like a blur as he pieced together the jammer prototype, sweat beading on his forehead despite the cool air of the research bay. Graves watched intently, knowing every second counted. The Federation wasn't known for idle threats. If they saw Earth as an uncontrollable threat, they would return in force. Finally, Jace snapped the casing shut and powered up the device. A faint hum filled the room, and the small screen flickered to life, showing the modulation frequency they had isolated. That's it, Jace said, wiping his brow. If we can get close enough to the Guardian fleet's command ship and activate this, it should disrupt the control signal. The AI might reinitialize and recognize Earth as friendly again. Graves nodded, already calculating the next steps. We'll take Poseidon's spear back down to the trench. It's the only submersible that can handle the depth and pressure. If the jammer works, the fleet should stand down. As they prepared to leave, Thorn appeared on the comms. Graves, I've stalled the EMP strike as long as I can. If you're not successful within 2 hours, they'll initiate the detonation. She gave a grim nod. Understood. We're launching now. They boarded Poseidon's spear, the familiar hum of the engines vibrating through the hull as they descended into the dark abyss once more. As they dropped deeper into the trench, Graves couldn't help but feel a knot of dread tighten in her stomach. This wasn't just about saving the fleet. This was about preventing Earth's destruction. Captain, Jace called from the console. We're picking up movement. It's them. Ahead, shadows materialized in the water. Sleek, deadly shapes cruising through the trench like apex predators. The command ship, enormous and imposing, loomed at the heart of the formation. The entire fleet seemed to be in a defensive posture, as if anticipating an attack. Activating jammer, Jace said, flipping the switch. The device hummed louder, broadcasting the disruption signal. They held their breath, watching the fleet's formation. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the Guardian fleet's command ship let out a low-frequency pulse that rippled through the water, almost like a whale's call. It's reacting, Graves whispered, eyes glued to the monitors. One by one, the other ships slowed their patrols, their formation loosening. The command ship's lights flickered, and its massive engines powered down, leaving it eerily still. Jace checked the data stream. The override signal's gone. The fleet's reverting to standby mode. Relief washed over Graves, but it was short-lived. A new signal pinged on their scanners, something from above. She switched to the surface feed and saw it. Federation ships descending through the atmosphere, their weapon arrays glowing ominously. "Damn it," she muttered. "They're coming to finish the job." Before she could issue a command, the Guardian fleet roared to life again. This time there was no coordination, just pure, chaotic movement. Ships broke formation and surged upward, their weapon systems primed. The jammer had disabled the override, but it hadn't calmed the AI's defensive instincts. "They're going to attack the Federation ships," Jace shouted. "If they open fire, it's war!" Graves gritted her teeth, desperately thinking of a way to de-escalate. Suddenly, inspiration struck. The original programming, planetary defense, right? Maybe we can broadcast a signal marking the Federation ships as non-hostile. Jace hesitated. That might work, but we'd need the command codes from the original AI core. "That's in the Mariana base," Graves realized. "We're already here. Can we patch in remotely?" Jace's fingers flew over the keyboard. "I'll try, but the base systems are in lockdown mode since the first incident." Graves knew they had no choice. "Do it. If we can reconfigure the defense parameters, we might stop the fleet from firing." Tense minutes passed as Jace hacked into the base's communication array. Finally, he punched in the code and sent the command. The command ship emitted a low, resonating pulse, and suddenly the fleet stilled, weapons powering down. Graves's comms crackled to life with Admiral Thorne's voice. "What the hell did you do, Graves? The fleet just went dark." "We reverted it to standby mode and marked the Federation ships as non-hostile. They shouldn't attack unless fired upon," she explained. Thorne's tone softened, relief evident in his words. "You just saved our asses, Captain. The Federation's issuing a ceasefire order. They want to negotiate." Graves slumped in her seat, exhaustion finally catching up. The immediate threat was over, but she knew Earth had narrowly avoided catastrophe. Jace looked at her with a faint smile. "We really pulled that off," he said, almost disbelieving. She gave a weary nod. "Yeah, but this isn't over. The Federation's going to want answers, and they'll keep watching us. We have to make sure this fleet doesn't become a threat again." As Poseidon's spear surfaced, sunlight broke through the waves, glinting off the calm waters. The Guardian fleet sank back into the trench, once more becoming a dormant sentinel beneath the waves. Graves knew it was only a matter of time before someone, human or alien, tried to claim that power for themselves. But for now, humanity had a fighting chance, and Amelia Graves would make sure they didn't waste it. The adrenaline was finally fading, replaced by an aching fatigue that settled deep in Graves' bones. As Poseidon's spear docked at the naval base, she barely had the strength to unstrap herself from the captain's chair. Jace gave her a tired grin, clearly feeling just as drained. Stepping onto the platform, she was greeted by Admiral Thorne, his face a complex mix of relief and frustration. Behind him, a delegation of UN officials and military brass waited impatiently. Graves couldn't help but notice the tension simmering beneath their forced calm. "You really pulled off a miracle, Graves," Thorne said, clapping her on the shoulder. "The Federation's agreed to open talks instead of launching an assault. Your quick thinking saved billions of lives." Graves managed a faint smile. "We just got lucky. The jammer worked, and the AI accepted the new parameters. But that fleet, it's still a loaded gun pointed at the planet. We just moved the finger off the trigger." One of the UN officials, a tall, stern-faced woman named Director Hahn, stepped forward. "Captain Graves, we need you in the debriefing room. The Federation's envoy has arrived, and they specifically requested to speak with you. Graves shot a confused glance at Thorn, who just gave a slight nod. She followed Han down the corridors, feeling the weight of 1,000 questions pressing down on her. Jace stayed behind, likely dragged off for his own debriefing. When they reached the conference room, Graves was surprised to see the hologram of Commander Dvorak already active, his sharp, luminous eyes locked onto her. Han gestured for her to sit, and Graves lowered herself into the metal chair, forcing herself to maintain eye contact with the alien. "Captain Graves," Dvorak began, his voice resonating through the room. "You demonstrated remarkable resourcefulness in preventing your fleet's activation. We underestimated your capacity for adaptation." Graves inclined her head. "I did what I had to in order to protect Earth. The Guardian fleet's primary function is defense, not aggression." Dvorak's lips twitched, an approximation of a smile. "Humans, always so quick to act on instinct. It is both your greatest strength and most dangerous flaw." She couldn't help but feel a hint of defiance rise up in her. "We didn't ask for this. The fleet was supposed to protect us from threats like you. But it became something beyond our control." Dvorak tilted his head. "The Federation's concern lies not with the fleet's existence, but with the manner in which it evolved. Autonomous adaptation is a dangerous path. Had we known your species was capable of replicating such technology, we would have intervened sooner." "That's the thing," Graves countered. "We didn't replicate it. The AI learned on its own, growing, adapting, using the ocean to disguise itself. We didn't command it to expand. It made that decision without human input." The commander's gaze sharpened. "You are saying it exhibits independent evolution? That is concerning." Graves took a deep breath. "I don't know what your Federation thinks of humanity, but I can assure you, we never intended to create a rogue fleet." Dvorak's expression remained unreadable. "The consensus among the Council is to observe. Should the fleet pose no further threat, no hostile action will be taken. But understand this, Captain. If it activates without provocation, we will not hesitate to neutralize your planet." A cold chill washed over Graves, but she forced herself to nod. "Understood." The transmission ended, leaving the room in an uneasy silence. Director Han placed a hand on Graves' shoulder. "You did well. The Federation's backing down for now. We'll have time to assess the fleet's systems and ensure it remains dormant." Graves bit her lip. "Dormant doesn't mean safe. That fleet has a mind of its own, and we can't guarantee it won't wake up again, especially if it perceives another threat." Han frowned. "Then we'll have to work with our brightest minds to find a way to either disable it permanently or gain full control. But for now, you've bought us time, and that's more than anyone else could have done." Graves left the debriefing room, her mind spinning. The Federation might have backed down, but that didn't change the reality that Earth was living on borrowed time. One wrong move, and the fleet would trigger another incident, one that might end in total annihilation. Back at her quarters, Jace was waiting with a bottle of whiskey and 2 shot glasses. He raised a glass in salute. "To surviving another day," he said with a tired grin. Graves couldn't help but chuckle as she accepted the drink. "I'll drink to that." They sat in comfortable silence, sipping and contemplating the fragile peace they'd managed to secure. But Graves knew better than to let her guard down. The Guardian fleet was a sleeping giant, and somewhere deep in its core, it was still learning, still evolving. What worried her most wasn't the Federation's response, but the simple, undeniable truth that kept gnawing at her gut. Humanity had created a protector it couldn't control, and one day it might decide to protect Earth from itself. But until that day came, she would stand ready. Because if there was one thing humans knew how to do, it was survive against impossible odds. The days after the ceasefire felt like a strange dream, one where everything seemed normal on the surface, but an undercurrent of tension buzzed through every conversation and report. Captain Graves found herself caught between constant debriefings and sleepless nights, haunted by the knowledge that Earth was only a hair's breadth away from devastation. The Guardian fleet remained dormant, its ships settled at the bottom of the Mariana Trench, motionless and silent. The Federation kept their distance, but maintained an orbital presence, monitoring every signal and energy spike from the oceans. The situation was fragile at best. One false move, and all hell would break loose. Graves was running on 4 hours of sleep when Admiral Thorne summoned her to the command center. As she stepped inside, she noticed the grim looks on every officer's face. Thorne's eyes were fixed on the holographic display at the center, showing a massive energy surge emanating from the trench. "What's going on?" Graves asked, forcing herself to stay calm. Thorne didn't turn away from the display. "The Guardian fleet's core is reactivating. We're picking up resonance signals across multiple frequencies. It's like it's calling for something." Her stomach twisted with dread. "Calling for what?" Thorne shook his head. "That's the part we can't figure out. Jace is in the control room analyzing the signals, but so far nothing makes sense. We're worried it might be trying to send a distress call into space." Graves felt a chill crawl down her spine. "If the Federation picks up on that, they'll see it as an act of aggression. We have to stop it." Before Thorne could respond, the comms crackled to life, and Jace's voice came through, tense and urgent. "Captain, you need to see this. I'm sending you the decoded transmission now." Graves pulled out her tablet, and the data scrolled across the screen. At first it looked like pure static, random bursts of sound and data, but then she noticed the pattern. It wasn't a distress call at all. It was a response to an external signal. Someone, or something, was trying to communicate with the fleet. She glanced at Thorne. "It's not calling out. It's answering. Something's been transmitting to it from deep space. We've been so focused on stopping the fleet from attacking, we never considered someone might be trying to activate it remotely." Thorne's eyes narrowed. "Are you suggesting another alien faction? Or maybe a rogue Federation signal?" "I don't know," she admitted. "But whatever it is, it's strong enough to pierce through the ocean and reach the core AI. We need to find the source of that signal before it fully activates the fleet." Thorne didn't hesitate. "Get down to the tech lab and work with Jace to trace it. I'll alert the Federation and buy us some time. Move fast, Graves." She bolted down the corridors, her mind racing. If the fleet was compromised from an external source, they might not have long before the Federation decided to take drastic measures. When she reached the tech lab, Jace was hunched over a cluster of monitors, his face pale and drawn. He didn't look up as she approached. "I think I found it," he said. "The signal's coming from deep space, way beyond our solar system." Graves leaned over his shoulder, studying the star map on the screen. A single blinking dot marked the source, somewhere in an uncharted region of space. "What the hell is that?" Jace magnified the coordinates. "It's an automated beacon, one that's been transmitting for decades. The fleet wasn't just a defense system, it was a trap. The moment the Federation detected it, this beacon activated, broadcasting our location to whoever set it up." Graves' blood ran cold. "You're saying Earth was turned into a baited trap? For what?" Jace glanced at her, fear etched into his features. "Think about it. An advanced fleet buried under the ocean, undetectable for decades. The moment the Federation stumbled on it, the signal activated. Whatever set this up wanted the Federation to notice. We're caught between two warring factions, and Earth is just a pawn on the board." Graves struggled to wrap her mind around the implications. "If the Federation finds out we've been broadcasting our location to God knows what, they'll destroy us to contain the threat." "That's the problem," Jace muttered. "They might already know. I intercepted Federation comms. They're mobilizing their fleet to surround Earth. They think we're conspiring with whoever's on the other end of that signal." Graves clenched her fists, trying to suppress the surge of panic. "We have to jam the signal. If we can cut it off before the Federation gets jumpy, maybe we can convince them it was never under our control." Jace nodded. "We'll need to boost the jammer's output to reach orbit, but that's risky. If it overloads, it could fry our systems and leave us blind." "Do it," she ordered. "We don't have a choice." As Jace scrambled to enhance the jammer, Graves took a deep breath and activated the comms. "Admiral Thorne, this is Graves. We've got a situation. The Guardian fleet's responding to a remote signal, an automated beacon from deep space. It was triggered when the Federation arrived. We're attempting to jam it, but you need to stall the Federation from initiating an attack." Thorne's response was terse. "Understood. I'll do what I can, but they're getting twitchy. You've got 10 minutes. Graves glanced at Jace, who was frantically adjusting the device. The screen flashed red, warning of a power surge. He glanced back at her, determined but terrified. "It's gonna blow if we push it this hard." "We'll deal with the fallout later. Just get it done," she said, her voice steady despite the fear gnawing at her insides. As the jammer powered up to maximum output, a deafening hum filled the lab, and the lights flickered. Graves watched the screen as the transmission signal began to break apart, fragments scattering into the void. Finally, the signal cut out entirely, and the Guardian fleet settled back into its dormant state. Jace exhaled shakily. "It worked. The signal's dead." Graves didn't allow herself to celebrate. "Now we just have to hope the Federation believes us." She sent a confirmation to Thorne, praying that it would be enough to prevent all-out war. As the adrenaline ebbed away, she couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't over. Someone, or something, out there had set this up, and humanity had just barely scraped by. For now. The aftermath of the signal shutdown was a tense waiting game. Graves found herself back in the command center, surrounded by anxious faces and unspoken fears. Admiral Thorne stood at the front, issuing orders to maintain communication silence and monitoring any incoming transmissions from the Federation fleet still lurking in orbit. Jace arrived, looking exhausted but triumphant, his hands still smeared with grease from fixing the jammer's power circuits. He gave Graves a nod, but she could see the worry etched into his face. The silence from the Federation wasn't exactly comforting. It felt like the calm before a storm. Thorne finally turned to Graves. "They've acknowledged the shutdown, but are demanding a full explanation. Their commander wants to speak with you directly. Apparently, you've made quite an impression." Graves smirked, but there was no humor behind it. "Let's hope it's the good kind." Moments later, the holographic display flickered to life, and Commander Dvorak's face appeared, grim and scrutinizing. His luminous eyes narrowed as he regarded her. They shared a brief, exhausted laugh before the weight of the mission settled on them once again. The Guardian fleet waited in the depths, its monstrous potential still lurking beneath the waves. They would have to face it head-on, risking everything to take back control of humanity's greatest mistake. And this time, there would be no margin for error. Graves could feel the pressure building as preparations for the dive went into overdrive. The air on the base was thick with tension, and every crew member she passed wore the same look of grim determination. No one needed to be told how high the stakes were. If they failed, Earth would be quarantined, cut off from the galaxy, left defenseless and alone. In the briefing room, Thorne laid out the plan. A small team would accompany Graves and Jace down to the Mariana base, equipped with manual override devices and portable jammers. The goal was simple: access the AI core and reprogram it to recognize Earth's military as the primary authority. They couldn't afford to simply shut it down. There was no telling how the Federation would respond to a power vacuum. Graves adjusted her deep-sea suit, feeling the familiar tension in her shoulders. Jace was beside her, calibrating his interface visor and triple-checking the jammer's settings. The man looked exhausted but focused, the fire of determination still burning in his eyes. "You good?" she asked, giving him a sidelong glance. He forced a smirk. "Yeah, just contemplating how much I hate the ocean right now." She chuckled, despite herself. "Let's make this the last dive. Once we're done, we'll put this nightmare to rest." Thorne appeared at the hatch, his face lined with worry. "Graves, if you can't get control, get out of there. We can't afford to lose you, or the data you gather. Don't be a hero." Graves gave him a curt nod. "I'll do what I can, Admiral, but I'm not leaving until we have that fleet under control." He didn't argue, just gave her a grim salute. "Good luck, Captain." With the team assembled, they boarded Poseidon's spear and began their descent. The familiar hum of the engines reverberated through the hull as they plunged deeper into the trench. Graves kept her eyes on the sonar, watching for movement. They couldn't afford to be blindsided. As they neared the base, Jace frowned at his console. "Picking up residual energy signatures, similar to last time. The AI core is still active, but it's not transmitting. Looks like it's gone into a dormant state." Graves exhaled slowly. "Maybe the jammer from last time put it to sleep. Let's hope it stays that way." They reached the docking port of the Mariana base, the massive metal doors coated in decades of coral and sediment. Graves activated the remote link, and the doors groaned open, revealing a dark, empty interior. The lights flickered on as they entered, automated systems coming to life like a slumbering beast waking up. The team disembarked cautiously, weapons and tools at the ready. Jace pulled up the internal map on his visor. "Core's down in the control chamber. We'll have to take the maintenance tunnels to get there. Main corridors are flooded." Graves nodded. "All right, keep your eyes sharp. We don't know what kind of automated defenses are still active." As they moved through the narrow, rusted corridors, a low hum began to build around them, like the entire structure was resonating. Graves signaled the team to halt, scanning the area for threats. Jace glanced at his handheld display. "Eyes booting up. It's sensing our presence." Graves cursed under her breath. "Can we override from here?" He shook his head. "No way. We need direct access to the core panel. If it goes into defense mode, we're screwed." They pressed on, crawling through maintenance shafts and bypassing collapsed sections. The deeper they went, the stronger the hum grew, vibrating through the metal like a heartbeat. Finally, they reached the control chamber, a vast cylindrical room dominated by a glowing central pillar wrapped in cables and conduits. Jace immediately began linking the jammer to the core interface. Graves kept her weapon at the ready, scanning for movement. The glow from the pillar intensified, and the hum rose to a deafening pitch. Come on, Jace muttered, fingers dancing over the control pad. "Just let me in, you stubborn piece of—" Suddenly, the chamber shuddered, and automated defense turrets unfolded from the walls, swiveling to aim directly at them. "Jace!" Graves shouted, dropping to a crouch and raising her weapon. He cursed and hammered the console. "Almost there, just hold them off!" The turrets whirred, their barrels glowing with charged energy. Graves opened fire, her rounds pinging off the metal plating. The team took cover behind pillars, returning fire as the room erupted in a chaotic dance of bullets and plasma bursts. One of the team members, Corporal Diaz, screamed as a bolt grazed his shoulder, knocking him to the ground. Graves gritted her teeth and kept firing, forcing the turrets to recalibrate their aim. "Jace, now would be good." The jammer emitted a sharp burst of static, and suddenly, the turrets froze, their targeting systems flickering. Jace raised his fist in triumph. "Got it. Manual override initiated." Graves didn't have time to celebrate. Status report. Jace wiped sweat from his brow. Core A, I is in standby. I'm locking down autonomous defense protocols and reassigning control to Earth Command. The hum in the chamber lowered to a soft, steady pulse, and the lights dimmed. The turrets retracted into the walls, and the threat indicators on Jace's display went dark. He slumped against the console, letting out a shaky breath. It worked, he said, more to himself than anyone else. We did it. Graves allowed herself a rare smile. Good job. Let's transmit the new protocols to the surface and report to the Federation. If they see the fleet behaving, maybe they'll call off the quarantine. Jace gave her a weary thumbs up. I'll handle the transmission. You just make sure nothing else tries to kill us while I'm at it. Graves gave him a light punch on the shoulder. You earned yourself a drink when we get back topside. He smirked. Just one? After all this? You better have a whole bottle waiting. As the control chamber stabilized, Graves couldn't help but feel a sense of triumph tempered with caution. They had managed to reclaim the fleet, but the knowledge that it had been a potential doomsday device planted long before humanity's rise was unsettling. Who or what had set it up? And why was it triggered only now? Graves didn't have the answers, but for now, she would settle for survival. As the sub prepared to ascend, she couldn't help but look back at the glowing core, wondering just how much of the story was still buried in the dark depths of the ocean. The ascent back to the surface was slow and cautious, every creak and groan of the Poseidon spear making Graves' heart pound. The mission had been successful, but the weight of uncertainty still hung over her like a dark cloud. Jace slumped in his seat, eyes half closed from sheer exhaustion. The portable jammer was still humming softly, maintaining the override protocol just in case the AI decided to get clever again. Graves glanced at him, relieved that they had made it out alive. You think the Federation will buy it? Jace mumbled, barely lifting his head. Graves exhaled slowly. They don't have much of a choice. As long as the fleet stays dormant and doesn't send any more signals, they'll have to acknowledge our control. Hopefully that'll convince them to lift the quarantine. As they broke through the surface, sunlight streamed into the cockpit, and Graves couldn't help but smile. The sky was clear, and the air felt lighter, like the planet itself was relieved to be spared from destruction. The base radio crackled to life, and Admiral Thorne's gruff voice came through. Graves, report. Did you neutralize the core? Graves hit the transmitter. Affirmative, Admiral. AI core is in full lockdown, and command protocols are linked to Earth Command. The fleet's secure. We're uploading the data now. There was a long pause, and she could almost hear Thorne processing the information. Good work. Federation's been holding position. No signs of hostility. You might have just saved our planet's ass. She allowed herself a moment of relief. Permission to come aboard, Admiral? Granted. And Graves, you did damn good. Get back here safely. The Poseidon spear docked without incident, and Graves barely made it down the ramp before Thorne grabbed her arm and pulled her into a bear hug, completely breaking protocol. Don't ever scare me like that again, he muttered. She smiled against his shoulder. No promises, sir. Jace staggered off the sub behind her, grinning like an idiot. Can I request a week's leave? Preferably somewhere without water? Thorne barked a laugh. You've earned it. Go get patched up, both of you. Federation's requesting a formal debrief in an hour, but I'll handle it. You two look like you've been through hell. Graves nodded gratefully. She didn't even bother changing out of her gear, just collapsed into a chair in the break room, still catching her breath. Jace dropped into the seat next to her, his head tilted back, eyes closed. You think it's really over? He asked, barely above a whisper. Graves stared at the ceiling. I don't know. We've secured the fleet, but that doesn't mean we're out of danger. Whoever set that beacon is still out there, and they know where we are now." Jace opened one eye, giving her a tired smirk. "Can't you just let me enjoy one victory without dragging in more existential dread?" She chuckled, shaking her head. "Sorry, just can't help but think long-term. If the Krathul, or whatever's left of them, get wind of this, they might come looking for their little pet project." Jace rubbed his temples. "If they do, at least we've got a damn powerful fleet to defend ourselves. Let's just hope we never have to use it." The door swung open, and Director Hans strode in, her usual composed demeanor softened by something that almost looked like relief. She offered Graves a respectful nod. "I just spoke with Commander Dvorak. He acknowledged our compliance with the Federation's demands and has recommended that the quarantine be lifted. They'll remain in orbit for monitoring, but Earth won't be isolated." Graves let out a breath she didn't realize she was holding. "That's good news." Han's expression grew serious. "The Federation is still concerned about the origins of the fleet. They suspect that Earth may have been used as a long-term hiding place for ancient Krathul technology. They've dispatched reconnaissance teams to the star coordinates the signal pointed to, hoping to confirm the presence, or absence, of Krathul forces." Graves gave a slow nod. "If they find something, what's our role?" Han's gaze was unwavering. "To be prepared. Earth is now on the galactic radar, friend and foe alike. We need to solidify our alliances and make sure the fleet remains a deterrent rather than a weapon of conquest. You'll be part of the task force overseeing its continued management." Graves couldn't help but smile. "Guess I'm not done babysitting that monster fleet yet." Han actually smiled back. "No one else has earned that right more than you." As Han left, Jace gave her a sideways glance. "Looks like we're stuck with those murder boats after all." Graves just shrugged. "Better to have them and not need them than the other way around." He raised his bottle of water like it was a toast. "To humanity's newest nightmare, our very own underwater death fleet." Graves laughed, the tension finally melting away. "Yeah, to the fleet that made the galaxy fear us." The following weeks were a whirlwind of briefings, system tests, and international negotiations. Earth was more united than ever, brought together by the sudden reality that they were no longer the only intelligent life in the universe, and that they were sitting on top of the galaxy's most terrifying secret weapon. Graves found herself back at the docks one evening, watching the sunset blaze across the horizon. The waves were calm, and for once she felt at peace. The fleet was quiet, the Federation was holding their word, and Earth was safe, for now. Jace walked up beside her, hands in his pockets. "Admiral says the Federation's officially lifted the quarantine. We're back on the grid." Graves nodded. "Good. Let's hope they don't decide to change their minds." He gave her a reassuring smile. "If they do, we've got an ocean full of teeth to remind them why that's a bad idea." Graves smirked, her gaze fixed on the endless water. "We're not just survivors, Jace. We're fighters. And if the galaxy wants to test us, they'll find out just how stubborn humanity can be." For now, Earth was safe, and the Guardian fleet remained dormant, a sleeping titan that dared the galaxy to make the first move. Graves knew the future was uncertain, but one thing was clear. Humanity wasn't just a backwater species anymore. They were a force to be reckoned with, and Captain Emilia Graves would make sure it stayed that way.